Hello, everybody. I'm Phil Brandt, President and CEO of AAIM Employers Association, and welcome to This Week at Work.
This Week at Work is the only show about the workplace that offers you front row seats and a microphone, featuring experts in human resources and employment law to bring you practical, timely, and accurate insights so you can more effectively lead your organization. It's Thursday, January 25th, episode 263. Today, I'm going to make some assumptions about you, the loyal listener or viewer of This Week at Work. So please comment and put me in my place if I get it wrong. Yes, you may tune in every week because you need a dose of that Phil Brandt smile. And you may even join us because of the soothing tonal quality of Burt's voice. But I'm willing to put money down that what you value most of all is hearing about the concerns organizations just like you are facing. And most importantly, what they're doing about it. Well, get ready because today Kris Gfell joins us to report the top concerns from AAIM members and what's working for them. It's another jam-packed show, and we begin unpacking it right now on This Week at Work.
Welcome back, everyone. It seems like Thursday just doesn't come often enough. We have so many things to cover. Burt, I don't know about you, but I have a full plate today. How about you? Burt Garland, shareholder of Ogletree Deacons, always with us.
Yes, Phil. I have to admit, I'm a little bit tired. I was up late watching the Blues game last night.
Oh, how'd that end? I didn't make it to the end, Burt.
You know, they were winning 3-2 with about 11 minutes left. I don't know how they held on for 10 of those 11 minutes. There's an absolute onslaught. And then with a little bit less than a minute left, I think it was Vancouver scored. Was it Vancouver? I don't remember.
Yeah, it was Vancouver.
Vancouver scored to tie it up, and then in overtime, the Blues won, which, I will tell you, they had an amazing comeback the night before and won. So a couple of great games, but man, I'm tired.
Yeah. Were you at the game?
No, they're up in Vancouver, and they're on a West Coast Canadian trip. So no, I was not there.
All right, excellent. Hey, I will tell you, that's right. They were in Vancouver. I knew that. So a couple things interesting to that. Craig Berube will be our keynote speaker. We're just now announcing that at our leadership conference. And personally, I'm really excited to hear from him because I love the correlation between sports and business. And I don't think they do this exactly, right? In the business world, but I just think it's amazing that you take a job like Craig Berube did. Every job you take, you're basically going to be fired from, right? It's like, this ends with being fired, which is the case for him. First one to win the Stanley Cup, a miracle turnaround, those types of things, except for our guest today, Kris Gfell. Kris, home state is Michigan, and Michigan won the national championship, and their coach didn't get fired, but he's leaving, right? It might as well be. For the Michigan fans, they're a little down in the dumps, but they're celebrating their victory. Good morning, Kris.
Good morning, guys.
Yeah, so he's still glowing about being Michigan national champions. He thinks he's part of that. And we're going to let him savor that. But Kris, I'm going to put you on the spot. So Nick in his intro talked about, the smile or the tonal quality of Burt's voice versus my smile. Which one are you going to pick, Kris? Let's put you on the spot.
Are you kidding me? That's definitely not a topic I'm going to get into. I'm not going to come out on any good side of the fence there. So I really think we need to go to the audience on that one. Let's get there.
I don't know if the picture on the screen draws any attention to it, but I mean, Burt's a hard guy to compete with. I mean, he's smart. He does have a great smile. He's got slick hair, right? He does all kinds of things with his beard. Look at the dreamy eyes in that photo that we have there. This guy, I mean, he's hard to compete with. I think you should have been in Hollywood, Burt, not a labor and employment lawyer. You had a career in Hollywood. You may have missed your calling.
Yeah, exactly where I would want to be, Phil. Hollywood. That's the spot for me.
Hollywood Garland. All right. But maybe our listeners will give us some of their thoughts and opinions on that. But let's go ahead and get started because we have a lot of things to talk about today for sure. We're going to kick it off with our survey questions. The first one is a word cloud. If you only had the ability to ask AIM to help with one concern, what would that be? So if you could ask AIM to help you with only one concern, what would your answer be? Put that into the word cloud and we'll share those with you. And then the second question is, of the following, which would you say is the three biggest expressed concerns from AIM members currently? And I'm going to share those answers for you tomorrow. But there's a variety of answers there. Select one. What are the top three AIM members' current concerns? And I'll give you some insight and a teaser for tomorrow's WOW session. All right. I heard somebody there. I don't know. Is that someone saying something? Did I miss it? Nope. Okay. All right. So, Burt, are you ready to kick off Lawyer on the Clock?
Of course I am, Phil.
My favorite part of the show. We get to listen to your voice. I love it. All right, Burt. Nick, pull that lever.
All right, it's time to look into what's trending in employment law. Lawyer, you're on the clock.
So we've got a few topics today, Phil, but the first one I want to chat about is information from the Bureau of Labor Statistics was put out yesterday for 2023. And the numbers regarding the level of unionization in the United States were not surprising to me, but fairly significant. So while the unions only added 139,000 members last year, the Bureau of Labor Statistics found that 11.2% of workers were represented by unions in 2023. That's actually down from 11.3% in 2022. But what's really interesting here is that the share of workers represented by unions in the in the public sector actually increased slightly. But then very significantly, the number of workers in the private sector actually held steady from the prior year at 6%. And I think that what's significant about that is that does stem a trend of decline in both of those measures since 2020. So does it mean that the ship has kind of hit the bottom and is starting to turn? I don't know. I know that union activity is up quite a bit overall. The activity trying to organize, the overall union membership rate it stood at about 10% of the workforce in 2023. That's down slightly from 10.1% in 2022, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. But again, really interesting that the private sector held steady and the public sector actually increased a little bit. So again, just kind of significant numbers, and people need to bear that in mind as unions are making a renewed push across the country to try to organize.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's a fight for their survival. Ooh, I'm not sure what happened there, but anyway, it's a fight for their survival, right? And when your back's against the wall, you're going to come out swinging, and that can be a fight for many employers who wish to maintain union free.
Yep. So again, keep your eye on the ball on that one. So another one I wanted to chat about real quickly is kind of a new development, or maybe I'd say a new take on an old development. And I want to talk about ban the box for hiring ex-felons, ex-convicts. And, we're all familiar with the ban the box laws, which that literally meant ban the box that's on job applications that asks the question, have you ever been convicted of a felony resulting in, either jail time, SIS, suspended imposition of sentence, plea of nolo contendere. And then we all have that parenthetical in there that the EOC and the courts want us to have that says, that a conviction will not necessarily automatically bar you for consideration from employment, such things as the age at the time of the offense, the length of time since the offense, the nature of the offense will be taken into account. And then we all know, Phil, that basically you have to do an individualized analysis to determine, look at those factors. And most importantly of those is sort of the job relatedness of the nature of the conviction to the job itself. And so that's what ban the box is. And again, those laws literally are trying to ban that box from the job application. Now, there's an effort going on in many states. I'll give you one guess, Phil, what the main state is that has the most aggressive law in this.
Oh, gosh. You know what? I'm actually torn between three. I'm torn between New York, Illinois, or California, but I'm going to start with New York.
Wow, interesting. New York is one of those, and California was sort of the first of these. And what they're doing is they're passing these laws that are known as Clean Slate Acts. Okay, so clean the slate. And that, these laws vary by jurisdiction, but they generally require states to automatically seal or expunge a person's criminal record for certain crimes once a set number of years passed after the completion of their prison term. Okay. And so if the state seals that record or expunges it, then theoretically, when companies such as AIM through AIM Check and other background check companies run their background checks, these criminal convictions are not going to show up. You combine that with ban the box efforts in many states that you can't ask the criminal conviction, and all of a sudden, you don't know whether the person who's applying for employment has been convicted of a crime previously. So there are legislative efforts to enact clean slate laws around the country. New York, late last year, joined 11 other states, including Colorado, New Jersey, maybe surprisingly Oklahoma, to enact such laws.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
maybe that's due to the number of criminals they have in Oklahoma. I don't know.
I don't know that either, Phil.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, there are efforts not surprisingly, there are efforts in Illinois to pass these clean slate laws, but there's also efforts in Missouri here as well to pass similar clean slate laws. So just keep in mind that is a trend. Kind of sweeping the country. These fair chance hiring laws are really proliferating, along with other movements to remove employment barriers for people with criminal backgrounds. And so you could see increasing federal and state enforcement of these. I think the takeaway here is that the best approach to hiring is to evaluate each candidate on his or her own merits. These individualized assessments of applicants aligns with the EEOC's guidance, as well as the policy goals behind many of these states and local second chance hiring laws. So I think we want to be really careful about that. The effects of these laws are frankly bleeding into jurisdictions that haven't yet enacted such laws. And that's the goal. That's the goal that California and New York always have, is that employers sort of throw up their hands and say, well, if I have to comply with this in California and New York, and I'm a company that does business across the country, I'm just going to comply with it everywhere. Yeah. So very important. And then the last
hard
one,
enough as it is, every city, state, county potentially has a different set of criteria today. I mean, it's not like it used to be. It's extremely complicated. Particularly for those organizations try to do it themselves. I have no idea how they can do that confidently with the level of accuracy, but it is very complicated. Our team does such a good job with that, and it's so hard, to have a new person do it. You want people who are trained and professionally certified to do this, so they know where and what to include or not include to keep you out of trouble. So it sounds like it's going to become even more complicated.
It will. Yeah. And just to piggyback on that, just a reminder to some folks that do business across the country that the District of Columbia passed a wage transparency law. We haven't been talking as much about wage transparency on the show recently, but that aims to address pay gaps for women in the United States. And so DC did pass a law on that. And I just want to remind people, again, very consistent with the ban the box or the clean slate laws that are popping up around the country, that employers that operate across multiple jurisdictions and considering remote work regulations as an additional challenge, you want to keep in mind that Hawaii made major changes to its Equal Pay Act, which went into effect earlier this year. Colorado passed amendments to its Pay Transparency Act. A wage history ban takes effect in Columbus, Ohio on March 1. And so you just want to make sure that you're to ensure that you're complying with each jurisdiction. You want to review your job posting templates to comply with the legislation. Consider introducing pay transparency as a standard regardless of employment law compliance. Again, it's sort of that least common denominator, whichever states have it. If you want to comply across the country, you just sort of implement it across the country. And then you definitely want to establish a system to demonstrate how hourly rates and salaries are determined for new employees. And you want to create equitable pay ranges for your job listings. There are resources out there that help you determine competitive and fair salary ranges by overlaying internal pay equity data with external labor market data. And I know that's a service that AAIM offers as well.
Oh, it's a key service that we offer with our partner, Mikey Mack, who's on the program with us. All of our listeners are familiar with him, and it's complicated today. In just a little bit, we'll hear a little bit about that from Kris Gfell, who leads that practice for us all together. That was a great lead in, Burt. I mean, I couldn't have teed that up any better. Thank you.
Amazing how that works.
Yeah. Excellent. What else you got there, Mr. Garland?
That's it, Phil. We've covered, again, the fastest 6 minute, I'm sorry, the slowest 6 minutes or the fastest 12 minutes you'll get in your day.
Hey, we appreciate your contributions as always, for sure. I'm getting a note here that something didn't sync correctly with the poll question, so I'm going to ask you if you did already participate in that. Do that again for us so we can get those results put together. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, let's get to Philbert's form, because I find this to be interesting. And a couple weeks ago, we had 4 of these. But if you remember right, these were predictions from a Time magazine article in 1966. And right as we were chatting about that, it's like work will be rationed, right? So this was a prediction in 1966. And they were saying by 1984, you think about how long ago that was, man will spend the first third of his life, or 25 years, getting an education. Only the second 1/3 of his life working, and the final third enjoying the fruits of his labor. There just won't be enough work to go around. And I think the theme was, we're going to be so effective, there just won't be enough work. And so we'll ration the work, which gets to the next one, which I thought was really interesting as well, right in line. Only 10% of the population will be working. Now you think about that. In 1966, we thought there'll be so many robots and efficiencies and computers doing the work that only 10% of the population will be working. So my question to you, Burt, and to Kris Gfell, because we have actually the opposite. We don't have enough people for the amount of work that we have. So, I mean, the prediction couldn't have been more wrong. There just isn't enough people for the amount of work that we have, and there's not the right skills for the work that we have as well. So, Kris and Burt, my question is, what percent of the U.S. population over 60 is working? And I have the answer here.
I'm going to go over 60. I'm going to go with 70%.
70% over 16. No cap on the upper end. All right. Kris?
Over 60 or 16?
Over 16. Excuse me.
Oh, over 16.
Yeah,
okay.
Over 16. Yeah.
That's going to change my answer there a little bit. Kris, I'm going to let you chime in real quick.
So yeah, that changes my thought too. So over 16 years old, I'm I'm going to say 82%.
All right. All right.
82%. Well, I'm still going to stick. I don't know. I'm going to up it from, I think I said 70% to about 75%.
All right. The answer is the U.S. population over the age 16 that is working today, and the prediction was 10% in 1966, and that was just U.S. population in general, is 60.8. So let's just call it 61%. I thought that was a really interesting fact. Those predictions, in many cases, couldn't be too far off. I think that's interesting because today the conversation is, oh, Chat GPT, it's going to replace everybody. You know, if you do self-checkout, no one's going to have a job at a grocery store, whatever it might be, all the things that we hear people saying. Just some interesting facts from Filbert Forum for you today. But let's move on and let's get to our special guest, Kris Gfell. Needs no introduction, but for those of you who don't know Kris, Kris works for AAIM out of our office in Indiana, and he leads all of our HR practice. So everything in the space of HR outside of training, outside of the background verification, falls under the responsibility of Kris. Mikey Mack works for Kris, and they have a great partnership and do a lot of good work. So Kris, good morning to you and welcome back to the program. Happy to have you on this morning.
Morning. Good to be here again.
All right, Kris, so let's just talk about some of the things that are going on. And a leading question I have, another trivia question for you and Burt, because I want to talk about recruiting. What percent, this is according to our National Business Trends Survey, which I'm going to be presenting tomorrow in our WOW session. You can sign up for that on our website. It's a great program. I know there's several hundred people already registered to hear the results. Mikey Mack will be joining me. Tanya Zion will be joining me. And it'll be an hour-long presentation of the trends across the United States, correlated by all of the employer associations across the U.S. It's a great results program. What percent of employers do you believe are delighted or very happy with their company's recruiting efforts?
Very happy. I'm going to go on the lower side. I'm going to say 15% are very happy and delighted.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be low also. I'm just so I don't copy you, I'm gonna play the Price is Right theory here, and I'm gonna go with 16%.
Yeah, I knew it. You do $1 more bet. I like it. I like Burt asking you these questions versus you asking me, because the answer is rounded up to 11%. Yeah. Now, I mean,
way to go, Kris.
It's an astonishing number of 11%. So Kris, tell us what are you seeing happening in recruiting? I mean, every employer's doing it, right? What's happening? Paint us a picture of what you're starting to see.
So, and this is coming from conversations I'm having with our members, and there's so many of them that are out there. The recruiting needs are really driving back to what resources do we have in an organization has been primary. That's the time that we get into. People are pulled in the HR department in different ways. Maybe we don't have the expert that we would hope to have as a recruiter. We've been asked to do a lot. I think if we look back over the past couple of years, 2021, and how important talent acquisition was, and that hasn't gone away. But what hasn't kept up with it is that development within the HR teams and in terms of number and experience. So they've been reaching out, and I've had a lot of conversations with people that just need support in reaching candidates, filling some roles. And really, it comes down to what can we do that's different for our organization, right? That's really the question that, I'm asking HR leaders and business leaders. Is it time to do something different? Is it time to open up the doors and change? Because if we're not changing, then nothing else changes. So, how can we drive something to them and bring a solution?
Yeah. What I see in that space a lot of times is the HR professional or small team of HR professionals. I don't see it so much in large corporations, right? Where there's staffs with specialties, but where we have small staffs of generalists who are responsible for many things across the board. The demands are picking up in the space of compliance, right? Recruiting demands have not lessened. Compensation demands are increasing. The employee relations, mental health, and employee well-being focus has changed drastically over the last 10 years. So the HR professional is being pulled in so many areas, but recruiting is just fundamental to keep the business alive, right? So any given day, at any given moment, that HR professional has to choose, am I going to spend time on addressing an employee relations concern, spend time talking to Burt Garland and his team about the issues that I have to deal with as it remains to mitigating the risk that I'm dealing with, time with AIM on handbooks or any of these other things that we're doing, as well as, or maybe comp or maybe recruiting. And so I have to decide. But recruiting is kind of a lifeline for an organization. And that is what I'm seeing as the HR professionals challenge. How are you helping them work through that?
So it really comes down to, and Phil, you're absolutely right. It's the challenge of where do I spend my time, knowing that I have to bring a lifeline of people in because that's what's needed to keep the business open and going forward. And so when we get into recruiting, we have experts that come and help, really going through and find candidates. The key here is passive candidates. That's where a lot of big roles are filled, is those that aren't necessarily looking or looking to be recruited, but the team can go out and find them. So there's headhunting that is happening. We can go out and help figure out how to right size their job ads, do something a little bit different, talk about the organization, promote the organization differently, just from some conversation and some help and support from a consulting perspective. So really bringing in not a one-size-fit-all approach. It's something that's flexible and geared toward every single organization that's different. For instance, we had one organization that we helped just this past fall that really came in looking for one role. And that springboarded into, wow, we found that person pretty quick. We need more of that. Let's open it up and bring multiple of those people in, knowing that once you start figuring out the key to that recruitment for that position, it can roll into a really good thing for that organization.
And I like what you said, if you need or desire a different result, right? And I know employers do, owners, CEOs would like there to be a different result, but no one wants that more than the HR person who's spinning their wheels
right,
time and time again, doing the same thing and not feeling necessarily the challenge, but the burden, right? Very different thing, a challenge versus a burden in that. To do their job well, to be recognized as a professional with a level of excellence. I always, when I'm working with them, I always say, what is it that you really like to do that you're good at? And let's get you focused there. And then how can I help you with what you're not so good at or you don't like to do? Because if I don't like to do it, I don't do it with the passion and the energy to do it at a level of excellence that it probably deserves. So that's, I know, in my conversations, always a good starting point for that. Kris, what other trends are you seeing from our membership base at this point?
There's the big one, and we've talked about it, and this is where Burt focuses too, is the compliance side comes through. Our handbook support and handbook work. We have a lot of projects with our members, and I think that's just to the side of compliance is going to be there, and the organizations now sometimes have waited a very long time to update the handbook, and that's really where I go when I talk compliance. That just the basics there are the handbook. This impacts recruiting, it impacts retaining people, and it impacts, of course, let's make sure that our organization is meeting regulatory needs and state regulatory needs. So the handbook is there and helping to take it off of somebody's plate. Again, we're getting into time that the HR professionals just don't have, our business leaders just don't have. Let some experts come in and help. And I think that's what's really proven to be so supportive and helpful to organizations. And they've been very appreciative of what we've been able to help and support. So again, fatigue of the HR professional, it's real. I think anybody who's been in HR has faced it. Where do we spend our time? And Phil, to your point, like if it's not something we feel really passionate about or feel good about doing, then let's find somebody that can do it for us And that just helps take us up as professionals to that next level.
You know, the last thing in that it's usually one of the biggest concerns I have when I discover when I'm talking with our HR team is there's this silent concern that we don't speak about out loud with many people, particularly if we don't trust them. And that is, I am afraid, or I don't want to say, I can't do that. I'm not good at that, right? So the HR person takes that burden to go about it the best way that they can because they believe their boss thinks that's your job, right? This is your job to do recruiting, to do job descriptions, to do compensation, to do employee relations, to do union free, to do all these things. That's your job. And in today's world, 20, 30 years ago, that was a very different thing. You didn't have to deal with pay transparency and the things we were talking about and how complicated it is to just do a simple background check and all these things that Burt tells us about every single Thursday morning. Now it's far more complicated, and it's not reasonable to think that one or two people can do all of those things for an organization and keep the business out of risk and moving forward in a progressive way. And so I know when I get in conversations and I help executives know that, they're often willing to say, okay, what do we need to do? Right? Once they understand the challenge, they can say, what do we need to do? And then we move that business forward. And it's like this, it takes off. But there has to be that courage first to say, I need this help.
Absolutely. And that's where I think the struggle point is with so many organizations is really having that inclusivity to allow that and to bring somebody to the table, to really be comfortable saying, I don't know, and let me go find out how I can do it. Again, it's nobody can be experts in everything, and it's extremely complex, to your point. And that's where I just think solutions that we have around very critical HR topics and processes really pay off.
Yeah. All right. I think that's going to bring this to a conclusion as we're just a few minutes over. I do need to just report, as there was a question about malarkey and baloney. Kris, that was our conversation from last week. I did ask my kids about baloney, not malarkey, and they're like, I think that's a meat that you asked, but I don't understand what that means. And so, no, my kids didn't know when you go, oh, that's a bunch of baloney. They could guess it, but it's not a phrase that they'd heard me say or that they're familiar with. I have to throw the malarkey out there, and it looks like Dave.
Phil, if they pay attention to politics and they're watching our esteemed president of the United States, they would have to know what malarkey is.
I mean, there he goes again. Kris. During loves to jump on our politics.
Yeah. During the last presidential race, the one going back to it was in 2019, leading up to the vote in 2020. I think that Biden even ran the No Malarkey tour that was on the side of his bus.
Yeah. I do remember that. Well done. Okay, Burt. All right. Nice. See, this guy is just he's like a walking AI. I mean, he's got it going on. All right, Kris, thank you.
Artificial, maybe. I don't know about the intelligence piece.
Hey, but I'm going to ask Nick to bring up our closing screen. Nick, put that back up there. Let's see those dreamy eyes of Burt Garland. We'll be back here next week at 7:30 Central Time. I hope you join me tomorrow at 8:30 on our WOW session. You can join from our website. We're going to talk about all the business trends across the U.S. I think it will help you configure and plan your business, understanding what our competition and peer companies are doing. Until then, thank you, and go out and let's go be good to somebody. Bye-bye.
Thank you once again for tuning in to This Week at Work. If you enjoy the show, please share it with your colleagues, forward our invites, share the link, aimea.org/This Week at Work, or follow or subscribe wherever you get your news and entertainment. LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, we're everywhere you are. Don't forget you can be part of the show. Send your questions and comments anytime to info@thisweek.work. We'll see you next week, 7:30 a.m. Central Time, when we discuss what's happening this week at work.